To sum it up, our system is morally right. Wealth would be concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer, while the great majority of people would suffer increasing poverty.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
We must know how the national income is divided in America. In other words, we must examine the distribution of the great wealth produced through the operation of American capitalism. Is the distribution widespread, or is the wealth of America concentrated in the hands of a few, as the socialists and communists say? This is the central question for our discussion today. The answer constitutes a tribute to our system, for the wealth produced within American capitalism is widely distributed throughout our population, as we shall see.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
We know that American capitalism is morally right because its chief elements, private ownership, the profit motive, and the competitive market, are wholesome and good. They are compatible with God's laws and the teachings of the Bible.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
We'll risk a guess as to the total amount of the national income during this amazing productive era in America. Let's say for the last 25 years. Yes?
I would say it would be hundreds of billions.
Actually, it's up in the trillions. For the 25-year period just ended, it was $3,780 billion. You get writer's cramp with a figure like that. You may be wondering, who got all this money? To see how this wealth was distributed, let's look at this graph. This represents the total national income. To the employees of America, the wage earners and salaried people, went the biggest amount, 65%. The self-employed, professional people and small business operators got the next share, 9.5%. The farmers and dairymen who supplied food markets and our processing plants with the raw foodstuffs received 6.5%. Stockholders, the people who could save a little money and invest it in business and industry, received 4%. And you will remember that this amount was widely diffused, since there are 18 million stockholders in America today. Their investments of their savings have built new factories, provided new machines and other equipment to make new jobs in industry. The corporations themselves receive 7.5% before payment of taxes. After taxes, they retained only 3% of the national income. The people who had property for rent received 4%. And lastly, the bondholders, who provided the cash for new schools, new paving, home loans, and so forth, received 3.5%.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
Now let's examine the distribution of wealth in another way. Let's examine the income by families. In the most recent year, for which we have statistics, there were approximately 50 million families in the United States. They received an income of approximately $272 billion before taxes. How was this income distributed among these families?
Professor Gaines, aren't the majority of our families in the lower income brackets below $3,000 a year?
Not at all, John. Nearly 21 million families, or 40%, received an income of $3,000 to $6,000. 15 million more families received an income of $6,000 or more. These two groups contain 70% of the population. That leaves only these with an income of $3,000 or less. Not to be overlooked, a good-sized group, 7%, received incomes of $10,000 or more. But only 3% were in the $15,000 and above bracket. And from this bracket came the bigger portion of venture capital or investment money to build manufacturing plants and to start businesses, thus creating new jobs and new products. In the lower brackets go these figures. 12.8% received incomes from $2,000 to $3,000. 10 8/10% received from $1,000 to $2,000, while 5 7/10% received less than $1,000. We must remember, however, that in these lower brackets are many farm families whose cash incomes do not strictly reflect their standard of living. Mary, what can be learned from this graph?
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
Yes, 85% of all income goes to 93% of the families, while the other 7% of our families receive the remaining 15%. Thus it can be seen that the great bulk of income goes to the majority of families in the middle income range, that a relatively small percentage of families receive less than $3,000 a year, and a very small minority of families receive $15,000 or more per year.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed.
In fact, if all the income left to those in the $15,000 or above bracket after taxes are paid were to be distributed evenly among the 160 million people in America, each of us would receive only 55 cents a day. And if the net income of all those who earn $25,000 or above were to be distributed evenly, each of us would receive only 15 cents a day above our present income. So we wouldn't gain much by liquidating the upper income brackets about whom the socialists and communists rave so loudly. It is to the benefit of all Americans that incentives for achievement remain constant in the upper income level, as in all other brackets, so that all Americans may enjoy the benefits from the total brain power and enterprise in our dynamic nation. The true facts about American capitalism's distribution of wealth and its great wealth production overshadow anything the communists and socialists have to show. The truth about the distribution of wealth under American capitalism makes Karl Marx the world's worst prophet. Marx, the socialist founder of communism, prophesied that under capitalism, wealth would be concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer, while the great majority of people would suffer increasing poverty. The fact is that American capitalism has set a new standard for human welfare. And if we keep its basic principles strong and vigorous in the years ahead, the opportunity of every American for a still better living standard will certainly be enhanced. And perhaps even the disciples of socialism and communism will come out of their shadowy pipe dreams and join us in our march of human progress.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized. It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed.
It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed, much more than I realized. It seems that our national wealth is very widely distributed.
We know that American capitalism is morally right because its chief elements, private ownership, the profit motive, and the competitive market, are wholesome and good. They are compatible with God's laws and the teachings of the Bible. Wealth would be concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer, while the great majority of people would suffer increasing poverty.
Much more than I realized.
To sum it up, our system is morally right